Hey all! Before we get started, I'm super excited to announce that we're kicking off a collaboration with the Israeli website CTech, owned by Kalkalist, Israel's leading business newspaper. In case you've been living under a rock, simply put, CTech is the gateway of the Israeli high-tech to the tech world and vice versa. From now on, you'll be able to read about our interviews on CTech as well as listen directly from there. If you're not already a regular reader, we strongly recommend that you check out kalkalistech.com, CALCALISTECH.com, to stay up to date on high-impact stories from the Israeli tech scene.
Real life
Superpowers.
We don't get to speak to as many women as we'd like to on this podcast. We're actively working to change that. I hope that from our little corner of the audio web, we're helping some women listeners out there tap into their own superpowers and step into their full potential. I know those are big words, but for what it's worth, I mean them. In the meantime, when we do get the opportunity to speak to women founders through this platform, those interviews have always been powerful, leaving us with a lot of food for thought. This episode is no different. In it, we speak to Meirav Harel. Meirav is a world-known expert in tech, blockchain, digital disruption, and trading interfaces. She was named one of the 100 most inspirational women in blockchain by Crypto Newspoint, 1 out of 36 top women revolutionizing crypto around the world by TechRoundUK, and listed twice on the Women in Fintech Powerlist by Innovate Finance UK. There's a lot to learn from this real-life superwoman. She's been through a lot, and she's not afraid to be vulnerable and authentic, sharing her knowledge and hoping to empower others on their journey.
Real life
Superpowers.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Real life
Superpowers.
Meirav, welcome to Real Life Superpowers.
Hello, how are you?
We're good. How are you?
Fine, excited to be here.
What are you up to these days?
Very interesting stuff on different categories and different things.
What's like the highlight?
Well, I'm building a new project, this time my own. That's like what takes most of my time. This time it's for me.
This time as opposed to?
As opposed to until now, I was COO at 3 companies. And I built one of the biggest security trading websites as a product manager and then a biz dev manager, and created value for big companies and for small companies. And then, different positions where I come in and help other projects as well. And, whether it's with strategy or with project management or, advisory and, and helping others get better at what they want to do using the tools of financial technology and crypto, right? Because that's where my special added value comes from, right? That I live in this field for over 20 years, even before it was named Fintech. And this time I want to take all of these things together. And we're actually focused on attracting investors at this moment.
And what gave you the courage to set off on your own at this stage? Like this is, 2 decades and up into your career.
Yes, I decided to start on my own when I was 43 years old.
Why now?
Why then? You mean, because this is 5.5 years ago.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, I had the best position in the world, actually. I started out as a programmer in the dot-com era. And then when the bubble burst, I had to pivot. So I pivoted into to become an investment consultant with a license from the Israeli Security Authority. Okay. And then I did that for about 3-4 years and managed a department of investment and had investment consultants that I was managing. At some point, I said, okay, we're just using half of my skill set, right? Because, I also know computers. What about, I'm just doing investing. And then I got the best position, in my opinion, for 7 years I did it, which was the product and business management manager of Lumi Trade, the security trading website of Bank Lumi. I would literally wake up in the morning going like, I'm going to work. It's so nice here. And it was really exciting because we were a really small team. We were only 4 ladies running one of the biggest security trading websites. In the time that I was there, we won numerous awards, and not only talking about the best website in security trading in Israel, not only the best banking website in Israel, we also won, I think, 5 times during that time, my term, the best website in Israel, period. But we also won international awards one of the three best security trading websites in Europe, alongside Credit Suisse and the Royal Bank of Scotland. And it was really exciting and exhilarating because we could do the whole range of thinking about new ideas. What should we do? Building them, checking them, bringing customers to them, and doing that cycle again and again every time something cool. And okay, this time let's do bonds. This time let's do stocks. Let's do options. Let's do something with international assets. And at some point, I kind of like picked my head up and I said, okay, well, I've been here like 2-3 years, right? What's next? And then I looked at the calendar and it was like 6 years into my position. I'm like, oh my God, what have you done to your career? I didn't notice because I was enjoying myself so much.
Why did you sort of hold your head up in that sense? Because it sounds like it was actually great and you were getting all these awards and you were getting recognized. So why did you suddenly feel as if something was off?
Traditionally, being in the same position at the same company for 6 years is kind of like perceived in many cases as, what are you doing to your career, right? And that is where I got worried. I was like, shoot, what did I do to my career? 6 years in the same, you can't exactly say it is the same position because officially that's, I'm sitting on the same chair. But, I'm not doing the same position. Sometimes I put the hat on of the product manager, sometimes the project manager, sometimes the business manager, every time, and sometimes the ideation person and the strategist. And, you're moving, if it's only 4 people for 7 years building the biggest security trading website, you do almost everything. The whole, I'd say 360 degrees of building a product, you do that there. But traditionally, if I was looking for a job as somebody working for somebody else, I think the first question that I would be asked is, why 6 years in the same place, right?
Doesn't it indicate that you're stable?
It could be, but it could also, I don't know, like different people can understand it in different ways. I didn't feel that 6 years passed. I felt that 2 or 3 years passed, right?
Which sounds like, the dream. You want to be in a position where you don't even feel time fly because you're actually doing what you love and it doesn't even feel like work, which sounds like ideal. And yet you felt, at some stage, you felt like maybe it's too good.
Did it feel like it was your project and was it? Like...
But I would literally call it my baby.
Right.
I raised a baby. And when it started walking and having a life of its own, I was thinking, okay, what's next, right? And that was when I got surprised that 6 years have passed and not only 2 or 3 years, right?
So then what?
So then I started thinking, what would be the next thing that I want to be doing, right? And I said, well, my kids are bigger. I have, during this whole time, I raised kids as well, right? I have 3 kids and they were already older. And I was saying, I always wanted to build something, of my own. Like, why don't I just try to do that? And then it was actually muster a lot of courage because I had tenureship. Like literally, if I was a lazy person, I could just sit down and say, well, I could just be here till the pension. Who's going to move me, right? And I gave up tenureship and I left Bank Leumi after 15 years there, 7 years in this position. I still love that place. I have many friends there. I believe in that company, and I'm very grateful for the years that I was there. And I literally was shaking when I decided to leave. When I told them that I'm leaving, I think it was first of all accepted with shock. Like, what? Wait, what can we do to change your mind? And from the inside and inside me, I was like, literally, even when I think about it now, it was so scary.
Let's try to dig into that because, you had tenureship. So I don't think, in essence, you lifted your head up after 6 years of doing what you absolutely love and you're respected and you're claiming awards. And you don't have to fear about not getting hired by somebody else because you could just actually sit there and stay there and do what you love. But something inside of you wanted to do something else. So what do you feel that was?
Break a new glass ceiling. Maslow pyramid, the Maslow pyramid. Of
course.
Number 5 of it, that you want to do something that you don't do for others. You want to do it for yourself and kind of like challenge yourself. Can I do this?
Self-fulfillment.
Exactly. Am I capable of taking a challenge upon myself and building what I see in my vision of what I can bring to the world? Okay, can I do it in a larger scale?
You're like proving that all your life though. Like this, like you're a woman. Before it's called fintech, you went to the technology world. Like I'm thinking I would shake. I'm sorry, just because I know how hard it is, and you're breaking ceilings also on the award winning, but also opening a company with 4 talented women, and also doing things that are fintech, which is a young.
Crypto. Talk about crypto. This is so young.
It sounds like that's like you wanted to break his ceiling. What was that inspiration from? Like, why did you decide to do that? Which is amazing.
You're asking me to think about the reasons inside me. I don't know. Maybe it's the wanting to challenge yourself and kind of like setting new goals for yourself and trying to achieve them, and against any obstacle that comes, it doesn't really matter, because when you put a goal and I think everybody has that, but people use it in different ways. Like they say, okay, I want to go, I'm going to have fun right now and I'm going to go travel the world, or I don't know, I want something, and people go and get it, right? Sometimes I'm a geek, I guess. Why this dream and not another one? I don't know.
Risk reward, though. I'm thinking of this. When you were younger, you went to technology, right? How did that decision come? Like, how did you get to technology?
Well, first of all, I started programming at the age of 8. My dad was a math professor, came home with a Commodore computer and sat that in front of me. And I was like, ooh, look at that. And then I started playing with it. And I realized that I really love programming. I studied programming throughout high school. And because I skipped a class, I didn't do 3rd grade. I had 1 year before, in Israel, I go to the army, right? So I had 1 year before the army. And what does a geek do? I went and studied. Okay. And then I became a certified programmer. I did, I don't remember how it's called, but it's I became a programmer. And then that's how I went into programming. I really loved it. It's I was talking about this today with my daughter. I told her one of the nice things about computers is that if something doesn't work, it means that you didn't program it right. I mean, you're the one that is in charge of putting the input in. And if something goes wrong, that means that it's your responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. And I love that part. It's like, you do it, you create it, and then it does what you want it to do, right? And in the system, after tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, you get to the result that you want. Isn't that amazing? It's like you don't have outside forces trying to, taking in different directions. It's like solely your kind of doing, right? So there's something very beautiful about it, or very, I'd say, simplified. It's just one parameter, right? The question is, can you do it when you have other parameters that are changing, and different, macro elements that are changing, and micro elements that are changing, and humans around you that, have different interests? And how do you now create something that is not only on one parameter? It isn't dependent only on you. It's dependent on many, many other parameters, right? Can you also do that? It's interesting, right?
Like a game.
Yeah, it is like a game. It is a game. Isn't it a game? It's kind of like a game, although the stakes are kind of higher, because with all due respect, it's not like you're a teenager living in your parents' house. I have 3 kids. I have a mortgage. I have a house. How do I exactly do that? Go and build this new kind of puzzle, this 3D puzzle this time. It's not just 2D, right? It's 3D. How do I do that when so much is at stake, right?
Were you always so absorbed into growth? Because I'm thinking maybe, before we hit record, you were talking about how if you're too comfortable, you're not growing. So do you feel like you need to not feel too comfortable?
I think everybody does. I mean, growth happens outside of our comfort zone. Okay. People decide to take challenges, whether it's playing a game on a computer game and challenging themselves there, or whether people that love cooking would take and try a new kind of challenge ourselves with a new recipe that could be, super interesting or super yummy. I think humans are born with goals. Look at babies. They set goals. They want to talk. They want to walk. They want to sit. They try again and again and again until they succeed reaching their goals. And I think it's human nature. Maybe it's turned off at some point with some people, or they don't even realize that they're doing this. Raising 3 kids, you see that a lot, because my daughter would say, I don't have motivation. I don't do this. And I'm like, wait, when you wanted to do jump rope, didn't you just sit down there 5 hours at a time, trying again and again and again to reach the level that you wanted to do with it's a Chinese jump rope, right? With Gumi. So and she sat there for hours, days, in the afternoons, reaching the level that she wanted to reach. So I think that it's part of human nature. Just we forget that the exhilaration, the fun. If everybody looks inside internally, they have goals. Sometimes they're afraid to reach them. Sometimes they stop themselves from trying to reach them because they're afraid. But the will to reach them is something I think that's inherent in human nature, isn't it?
That's true. The difference is that they don't know what they want. So if you give the babies, they want to speak because they want to speak. The amazing thing is knowing, like, you knew exactly what you want, so that willpower is there, and you were motivated enough. But knowing what you want is like the difference between the comfort zones.
Is it not knowing what they want or being afraid to go after what they want? Having self-doubt and thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable enough. Is that I don't know, I guess, where do people stop themselves from achieving their dreams? Is it in the part where they don't know what they want, or in the part that they don't allow themselves to even dream or think that they can reach what they want to reach?
Great point. Today, I feel that there's so much opportunities and informations that it's what to choose. Also, there's a scary part of if I achieve, if I fail, of course, but also what to choose, specifically closing that door, like you being a programmer and being a specialist and you wanting to open up that door and this challenge, and that you're in fintech and getting out of the comfort zone it's also, you're not scared, achievable, and you're very successful and very charismatic. But over that, there's also the sense of, you're focused, right?
I would put a question mark. Even when you choose your area of where you want to succeed, when you're an entrepreneur, when you work for yourself, the choices are limitless. Okay, do I want to write a book? I mean, all this knowledge that I'm giving people all the time, and I give, I think, around 80 lectures a year, easy. I do 2 a week. Okay, easy, and I'm invited from all over the world. Next week, I'm at a conference in Sofia, Bulgaria, which is funded by the U.S. State Department. Okay, last week I was what was that? I was at the Fintech Junction, where they asked me to come and speak about the future of money and finance. A few weeks before that, I was invited by the Abu Dhabi government, along with 12 leading women or 14 leading women in the world in Web3. Okay, which ideologically, So do I push myself more on giving more lectures and transferring this knowledge, in lectures? Or do I finally finish writing that book that I've been writing for the last 3 years and transferring that knowledge, right? Or do I create a series of recorded educational tutorials that can enable other people to learn this field? Because what's amazing about this field of financial technology, crypto, Web3, everything that has to do with the future of data, money, all of those things, everything is new. And a lot of people see this as an opportunity. They want to learn it. That's why they come up to me, right? I can teach it. I love teaching, right? I love transferring knowledge that I have, right? It's one of the things that I enjoy personally, right? So do I build it as a recorded course? What do I like? You can literally fill your time with so many different options. Okay, do I advise more companies, or do I build my own startup, right? When is the point where I kind of like take all of this knowledge and implement it to something that could be groundbreaking, where I could bring value to so many people at the same time, right? Which of the directions? And there's only 24 hours a day, and you need to sleep 7-8 hours, which I don't always manage to do. But that's it. You only have 16 hours a day to fit in everything that you want to do.
How do you choose?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I know you're asking me questions. How do I choose? I heard something very, very interesting. This is the question that one of my friends actually spoke about a few weeks ago, where she was in a dilemma, and she reached the conclusion that, she gave a really, really nice kind of like metaphor. She said when you're recording a movie, there are a lot of scenes that don't get into the final movie, right? The same is with your life. You kind of like choose what moves the plot forward, right? What's the next thing that I need to be putting right now that will move this plot forward?
And you're the director.
We are the director, we are the editor, we are the actors, we are the players, we are the scripters, we are the everything, right?
Yeah.
So we decide, do I prefer, I really like one of the things I think that I wish I could motivate people is not to sit in front of their TV and their TikTok and waste their time looking at lives of other people. Because if you accumulate the amount of time, how much time do people now spend in front of social media and TikTok and TV? 3-4 hours a day? 3-4 hours a day is a half-time job. Okay, it's half-time. 40 hours is a week. You do 4 hours a day times 5. That's 20 hours. You do that on weekends as well, right? So we're talking about something like almost 20, 30 hours. That's more than half-time. Okay, so if somebody would tell you could work half-time in building the dream that you have, okay, and you would have enough money to do that, would people choose that option? Because it's in front of them. I mean, if they're sitting 3-4 hours a day in front of a TV and not pursuing their dreams because they think they won't be able to sustain it, well, take those 3-4 hours that you're sitting in front of in front of being passive and start fulfilling your dream with incremental little steps, right? So I wish I could do that with my kids, right? I mean, try to motivate other people, but I think that's like I guess. And I try to do that myself. I try to say, okay, why would I sit and look at somebody else's life? Why don't I try to build something amazing while I'm here anyway, right? I'm here. So
I totally agree with that notion, by the way. But the thing is that I had someone saying to me the next thing that maybe their ideas will come at the end of the day on being on TikTok. So they're actually achieving their goals to be somebody on TikTok, which is, very sad on my sense, being older and what I think of things. But that you see a lot of people have those ideas. They don't know what to do. So they go on TikTok and then they become the TikTok person. You know what I mean? They're 3 or 4 hours being a specialist, at TikTok.
First of all, if somebody puts that dream or any other dream, who am I or anybody to say you could have a better dream? I mean, it's very individual, I think, right? And that's a dream in itself. And I think that if somebody does that and manages to become an influencer on TikTok and manages to reach the goals that they want, that's amazing. The question is, I think that there's always like two sides of the coin. What are you giving up by choosing this dream? Let's say specifically we're talking about TikTok. Do you realize that the amount of data that you are generating is not being monetized by you? Okay, if you want to do that on Web3. At least let the data be collected about you and monetize it, right?
And I would add to that I think maybe what Renan said is the exception to the rule, if there's such rule. Because most of the time, if you're scrolling through social media, you're looking at other people's highlight reel. And people don't portray the real image of their life. So you're going to sit there and look at all these success stories and how people are rocking their lives. And most of the time, I believe that actually makes people feel further away from self-fulfillment than anything.
They don't meet the people that are dreams that are different. That's the ideas they have. They don't meet a Meirav. And if they would have met a Meirav, then maybe that would be their dream. You know what I mean? It's kind of on a loop.
It's not only that. It's like when you own. There's research about this, right? What emotional impact does watching social media and even TV? What does that do to humans, right? What does that do to their emotional state and their mental state? It's not proved as effective for them. That's something that needs to be taken into account. So maybe if somebody wants the downtime, which is downtime is important. We all need that. Our brain needs to. Maybe it would be more effective to actually be listening or following people that are motivational speakers. You have a lot of these people that have dedicated their life to giving others tools in order for them to be able to create the future that they want and empowering people. It's not necessarily the people that you have on your feed and Facebook. I mean, maybe if you switch it to them, then, so choose what you're putting into your brain and what you're doing with those 4 hours of free time that you have a day.
I agree. You wanted to get out of your comfort zone and start growing, and that was terrifying. Did you have any mentors? Like, who did you turn to? Because obviously it wasn't smooth sailing, right?
Of course not. I might have made a mistake that I didn't choose mentors, Maybe I would have taken faster if I had mentors, right? I was kind of like inventing it as on myself.
Wasn't there even like somebody that you had in your head as a reference? Because at the end of the day, You must have had some vision of where you want to be.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, that's fair.
Elon Musk, great. I can't like exactly call him and say, "Oh, would you like to kind of like follow me in my growth till I reach your size?" It's not something that you can really do. And as a daughter of a math professor and a social worker, my parents their whole life lived as people working for others, right? And everybody around me were people that work for other people, and none of them were entrepreneurs. And there's so many skill sets and mental things that you need to go through as an entrepreneur. I don't even think I realized it, because it's not only when you build your own company, you actually need to be able to do all the different positions in that company. Okay. You need to be the ideation person, the strategist, the financial person, the marketing person, the social media person, the everything person, the person that works, the product manager, the project manager. You're everything. Okay. The salesperson, the business person. Okay. That is a skill, the amount of skill that you need to accumulate, the learning curve that you have to add to yourself, which is on the one hand, the how to do this, right? So how do I do the finances? What does that mean? To open a financial entity? Do I open it as a private person or as a company, right? At what stage do I move and open a company? And then what does that mean in regards to tax? So what's better, okay? And which stage of life, right, of your company, right? Or whatever you're doing. And how do I attract customers? And how do I do social media? Do I put a lot of hashtags or not a lot of hashtags? You just learn the way you go. You just continue learning, and you kind of like have a shelf of questions. And either you go and you say, okay, wait, I understand that I have a very big gap in the knowledge that has to do with sales or marketing, or I don't know, whatever you feel that you feel that is a very big gap. And then you say, okay, how do I fill this gap? Do I go and learn it? Do I go take a course? Do I go and take private lessons with somebody that's an advisor? How do I fill the gap of knowledge? But all of these things that I just mentioned are just on the side of the cognitive side. In addition to that, you have to build your mental, I'd say, library, right? Because the amount of times that you need to get up after you don't achieve your goal is has a potential of being so discouraging, right? Like, yes. I wanted to get this and this and this done, and then I work and work and work and work, and then I can't. It's not working. Okay, like, how do I continue? Do I give this up and then like, shoot, what does that mean? Am I failing? Am I not good enough? Do I try something else on the way? Do I try a different track? Do I continue pursuing this specific way? But when is the point that you give up and continue? And when is the point that you don't look at yourself and say, I could have been so much better. I'm not going to forgive myself. You have to have a lot of mental capacity to see, like, I heard this podcast that I was listening to like the third time, I think, by John Asraf. You know him, right? And he was saying that he learned very early on to distinguish between failing and being a failure. That is not an easy distinction. It's not easy, right? Because it's very hard to say, okay, so I didn't manage to get this goal and I didn't manage to get that goal. Does this mean that I'm a failure, or does it mean that it's too early now? Or maybe the other things that I did, maybe I should be counting the things that I did achieve and not looking at the things that I didn't achieve, because I don't know, naturally there's a tendency, at least in my brain, to look at, what I didn't do. So it was really funny. Like, I'm saying, okay, I did manage this, and this, but what do I focus on naturally? I look at the things but I did manage this. Shoot. How could I let that happen, right? But you don't necessarily, and I think that maybe, and this is something that I note to myself, I think each and every one of us has it to say, okay, Meirav, maybe you need to start looking at what you did achieve and giving, you really, like, if you stop and think about this, then you're doing fine. You have so much to give, you have so much to teach. People love what you're giving them. They come to you again and again to learn more, to do more strategy, to do more, to build projects for them. You sometimes can't even manage to reach all your customers because there's so many coming to you that want to get what you want to give. I have a lot to give to the world, right? And maybe I should be counting that side of the chart, right? Not the ones that I didn't manage to do what I wanted, right?
Thomas Edison was famous for saying that he found like 1,000 ways of not getting a light bulb to work.
I love that. I love Thomas Edison quotes. I mean, it's not, what is failure? Failure is just achieving something that you didn't have as a goal.
Beautiful.
That's all it is, right? What's failure? For somebody else, that could be success because that was what they were trying to do, right? It's just that I set a goal and I didn't necessarily reach it at the time that I wanted. So I can translate it in my brain to failure. But is that really failure?
Right.
You know, cognitively, when you think about it, it's not failure. I just achieved something that I didn't plan to do, right? So, okay, so let's try again. Let's try a different way. Let's try maybe, you know.
Do you think that your programmer mindset, like from a young age, and also as you spoke with your daughter about you being the one behind the code, and if it doesn't work, then it's on you, and if it does, then it is, did it help you sort of structure the way you approach business and be able to be accountable, but also able to sort of zoom out and see a larger picture and be able to say, okay, I need to switch some sort of quote unquote line in this code to adjust and maybe learn this other element?
It's very interesting. Yes, I do think that the structured methodology of programming that puts different steps into different compartments, which are procedures, right? Kind of especially when you're doing it at a very young age, it kind of like, I think, build the neurostructure in your brain in a way that is built with compartments, right? With, okay, so this is this procedure, I need to improve that one, and this is like this, and things are very kind of like sequential and logical, and kind of like I encouraged all my kids to learn programming, even if they don't want to work I haven't worked as a programmer since the dot-com era, right? I hadn't programmed in these last 20 years. I've built on top of technology because I understand it. I understand the way, you know, and I think that adding programming with anything else, make it finance, make it human emotions, psychology. Isn't it amazing to try to create with technology the way a human brain works? That's AI, right?
That's
Anything that you build on top of computers and on top of programming, you can build amazing things with it. It's like the infrastructure of the Lego blocks, right? So, you know, I was encouraging my kids, go and learn this, even if you don't want to work with it, because you never know, you know, when you're going to be needing it. B, you can build so many other things that on top of it, because, you know, I like saying this in my lectures, you know, our phones that we're holding, these little cell phones, they're stronger than the first IBM that sent a spaceship to space. The amount of solutions that humanity can build these days is something that is unimaginable. And it depends, like, that's why I'm saying that the interdisciplinary inventions are the ones that are the most exciting. So I'm lucky enough to have finance and technology, and that is where I create the new things, right? I create the new solutions on blockchain and create the new ideas that nobody thought about NFTs, of how to use them. I don't like hype. I don't like when there's no use case. I love the sweet spot of where you do something that's innovative, you give value to people, and there is a business case to do it, and people want this, right? That is where the sweet spot is. So I think that with NFTs, we're only now maybe touching upon these things. Okay. So when people came up to me and asked me, let's do an NFT project, I was like, I'm not building something for hype just because it's cool. That's not what intrigues me. Let's find the things that are interesting. So I think that the interdisciplinary, if I circle back to that, the idea of taking different worlds of knowledge and combining them in order to create value, and the new step that a lot of humans and a lot of people and a lot of can get value from that is where it's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
and you can do that with anything. Take art or medicine and add that to technology. Okay. And add that to the computing power, like anything that that interests you, human relations, okay, and negotiation skills with technology. Imagine what kind of a beautiful AI system you could create, okay? Anything when you combine it with technology, it's kind of like putting a special ingredient of magic dust, right? Where you can create new things. It's amazing. So I think that's kind of like yes, I do believe that teaching young people, even if they're young at the age of 40, learning how to code and how to program and learning the basics of how a sequential logical sequence of steps can reach something is a tool that is very helpful and useful and can become an infrastructure for building amazing stuff.
How do you take into account? So you got the logic pan down, but how do you take into account in the mental health, in the people? Like, you disappoint people because you have to, do something that they won't like as an entrepreneur, or people don't understand how amazing the negotiation AI, and they just don't get it yet, and they're talking about it, like the mental part of being the entrepreneur. And I'm taking into account that you're self-reliant and you can create and you understand everything. The thing is, there's people, and the mental part. Like you talked about skill set, but there's also the emotional, part, which is really difficult.
First of all, that's a great question. I think I would divide it. Okay. So you have what you do, you have the logical stuff, you have the skill set, right? You have the entrepreneur thing that you need to kind of like be mentally capable of sustaining that on long terms, because you're running a marathon, it's not sprints, right? And you see results of things that you've done like 2-3 years ago, you see it 2-3 years later. Okay. So you need to have the emotional and mental capacity to live with them. It's not instant gratification, right? That's one thing. How do you negotiate or talk or explain to people what they could be receiving by, that's another skill. So that's like, you have the internal negotiation with yourself, you have the external negotiation. How do you talk with humans, right? So, or how do you communicate with them? Because it's not
that you can't control.
Right. So that's very interesting. I think this question is very relevant to, some people are born with it. Some people are born with the ability to negotiate and talk and sell things. You see a lot of people like that. I mean, one of my kids is like that. When she was 3 years old and we went to daycare with her, there were like puzzles on the table, and kids would come and start doing their little puzzles. And, and at some point the daycare would continue. She was sitting there. I remember her at the age of 2.5, 3, sitting there and not looking at the puzzle, but looking at the other kids. And she would look at them. Then you'd suddenly see her smiling, going, ha. And then seeing a few minutes later, like, ha, ha. Right. And what I didn't realize at that time, and I only saw later when I saw her interpersonal skills, I realized that what she was busy doing at that time was learning humans and their reactions and their emotions and their communication between each other. And she is amazing in human relations, right? On the other side of that, I'd say if you call it a scale of how good a person is in human relations, you would have the other side of people that are on the verge of Asperger's, right? That they understand machines so well, but they don't necessarily have the skill set to communicate with other humans, which are not machines, right? There's a whole lot of different stuff happening there. I guess the way for people that don't have this naturally is to acquire that knowledge by using the analytical brain and going and learning. So go and take courses of negotiations. This is something I think on the second year of myself being outside and as an entrepreneur, I decided to go and study negotiations. Now, it wasn't completely new for me because, my BA and my master's degree, I had business and communication. Okay. And my thesis that I wrote is about interpersonal nonverbal communication between people, obviously. Right. So this intrigued me even as a 20-year-old. Right. But I felt that I need to improve this skill further in order to not waste energy. Okay. And be more effective in the interactions that I have around me. So I actually did another master's degree.
How many hours are there in a day again? 16.
Yeah, I now have a degree as a negotiation specialist. I don't use that. I don't come and help people with their negotiations. It's not one of the skill sets that I feel comfortable enough in teaching others. There are people that are naturals at it, right? For me, it's something that I wanted to learn more. So I'd give myself, I wouldn't give myself a grade A on that, right? I'd give myself a B, okay? There are people that are, if you want to go and learn, don't learn that from me, learn that from others, right?
I wouldn't mess with her B.
No, I'm just wondering if she framed it behind her when she's doing a negotiation,
No, I don't. I don't really. I don't. It's like embarrassing to even talk about this, right? My strengths come in different areas. Okay. The value that I can give others is I can give it in other areas of everything that has to do with finance, technology, innovation, crypto, where to build the future, how to build the future, and combine that with what you said, ethics. You mentioned that about how do I not hurt others, and which is so important these days, because you know what? I remember what I said about the ability with technology to build any kind of idea that we haven't even thought about. There is the ability that exists today can create various kinds of futures, okay? And they can be utopian or they can be dystopian, to the point that you're seeing developments around you and you're saying, wait a minute, do we really want to go there as humans, right?
Yes.
And sadly, I think in this time of the human evolution, we don't have Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Lincoln or any kind of moral and ethical compass speaking in these areas. And I kind of like sometimes find myself needing to do that job, although it's not necessarily, again, not my background, right? But you see things and you're saying, wait a minute, humans, do we really want to go there? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the future that we want. I'll give you an example. Okay. Is that okay to give you an example of what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future of money. Okay. Money itself is now being changed. Okay. If until now, before there was money created, you had bartering, right? And then humans created natural resources that are kinds of money, right? Gold, salt, seashells, every area had their own little natural resource. And then came government created or central bank created currencies, right? So every country has its own money, right? We've all been born to that. It's a paradigm, right? Then came Bitcoin that kind of like put a question mark and said, wait a minute, does money only have to be created by governments and central banks, or can there be a new kind of money that is dependent on this ability to use computers that enables people to use a new kind of money that doesn't have a central bank or a group of humans, okay, of that manage it in the background in a centralized way, okay? And then the next step after that was with Ethereum that came in and said, wait a minute. If we're already creating these new kinds of digital money, it's just a digital code that's moving from one place to the other. Why can't we program them? Okay. And they created smart contracts. Okay. So wherever you look at the evolution, we're seeing many new things. With smart contracts, we can do many things. We can put in the money itself rules. Okay. That means that let's say I'm transferring Noah some sort of fund. It'll only be liquid if something happens. Okay, that's what you can create these days. And then the next step of that evolution is actually being taken now into account by central banks around the world that are creating central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Okay, just the digital shekel, the digital dollar, the digital euro, the digital yuan. Okay. Now, everybody looks at them and is raising the questions about, okay, what about privacy? Everybody's going to know when you're buying, when you're selling. That is not the most ethical question that can be raised. The ethical question is, what do you program inside this new kind of money? And an example for where things could go in interesting directions is actually the one of the use cases that was done in China that exemplified what can be programmed into this kind of money. Okay. Now, the Chinese government rolled back on that. It's not necessarily how the digital yuan works right now, but it can exemplify and showcase what can be programmed in money. And here is a cute summary of what happened. People that received the digital money in their wallet, let's say they received $100, realized that they cannot transfer it from one person to the other because it's programmed that way. That means that now if I want to pay my Pilates teacher or give my parents some money or transfer it to my kids for some sort of allowance, I can't do that. Okay. It's programmed that way. Not only that, I can only buy in specific stores. That means that if I want to buy in a different store, literally governments can now program where you can buy and where you can't. Wait, when you go inside the store, the money can work only if you want to buy specific things. That means that theoretically it can be programmed that you are not allowed to buy cigarettes or not allowed to buy meat because it is polluting the area, or you have only 1,000 shekels a month to buy gasoline for your car. It is programmable into the money. Okay, and the last thing is that in the pilot that the Chinese government created was that you couldn't, if you had leftovers in your wallet, it could be taken away from you. It burns, right? It goes away. Okay, now when you think about this technology, this ability to program money, you can imagine a lot of different futures that humanity can have based on this technology, right? You could say, you could give people incentives to do good things, right? So people that donate, they're going to be getting something back, right? Or people that, right? On the other scale of it is that you can control people to the point of their money won't be working if they don't do what you want them to be doing.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of a decentralized network. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So now we as creators of these technologies, knowing what can be created, need to stop and think. Do we want to really create this kind of future? Do we even want to start playing with programming money, even to give incentives to people about good behavior? The moment that we go and we want to modify people's behavior with the program inside their money, what are we treating them as adults that can think for themselves, or as people that got allowance? And is that where we as humans want to evolve as a society?
Isn't it too late?
I hope not.
Okay.
And, this is interesting. This came up. We were speaking. I was invited last week, the week before, to the conference in Eilat of the CPA Association in Israel. Okay. And I was sitting there on stage alongside the regulators. You had the tax authority, which are my clients. You have the Israeli SEC. Okay. They're also my clients. And you have another regulator from, I don't know how they're called in English. Another one of them that has to do with securities and stocks and we raised this question. What is going to happen with these central bank digital currencies? Because who decides what to program in that money? Is it a group of diversified people? What backgrounds do they have? Do they come from psychology? Do they come from, or are they all privileged white males, right? Who sits down and decides?
I hope you do.
I wish, I would love to. Like, what do you mean? I've been asked about this because I do advise when I sit down with regulators. I sit down and put these things on the table because I think that this is the time to sit down and think about them. And all of them are my customers and I admire their work. These are things that we can't put in the back of our mind and say they will work out themselves. Because if we, as people that believe in ideologies and ethics and all sorts of things, don't stop and think about that, then who exactly is going to be doing that? People that have interests?
Is that what your book is going to be about?
Which one of them? The one that's written right now is the future of finance. Okay, and you have chapters about all the different aspects that I cover in financial technology, starting with the future of loans, the future of payments, the future of money itself, the future of data. Is data a currency? You can open a whole conversation about data as a currency. We're paying with it for services, aren't we? When we're using Google and we're using Facebook, what are we paying with? With our data, right? What's our data worth? What's the exchange currency? Our data is the currency that we're paying for. What's the currency? What's the exchange currency? Is it worth more or less than what we're getting? Maybe if we changed it into dollars, we'd actually be getting, $1,000, where the service that we're getting is worth $2 a month. Okay. I could make $998 a month from passive income just for my data.
Watching TikTok.
Oh my God, the amount of data that you're giving there. How much money could you create as passive income if you would bottle up that data and then choose to sell it to whomever you want to sell it? Okay. That's a whole chapter in itself in this book, right? The future of data as a currency. Okay, so there are many different chapters, and yes, of course, one of them is talking about the future of finance and money in the point of view of ethics and humanity and the evolution of humans, not only necessarily on the financial side, because obviously we're seeing the evolution on the financial side from seashells and bartering to the point where we are right now. Obviously, on that scale, yes, we're evolving, but humanity evolves on many other scales. What about ethics? That's a scale of itself. Once it was okay to have slaves, we now realize that no, that maybe that's not such a good idea, right? Humanity has evolved on ethics as well, right? Okay, so this next step, how does that correlate? Are we sitting on the ideology that the founding fathers and the French Revolution and all the rest of them sat? That's a stage in the evolution of humanity. Are we now taking a step back or a step forward with the inventions that we're creating as humanity right now?
Well, I very much hope it's a step forward.
I'm actually, I'm scared shitless to even converse about it because, if I had to guess, it's all, as long as attribution is and capitalism is there, the amount, I'm not saying I'm still an optimist, but the amount of percentile that I say of success on the ethics side would be hard because we're making it up and it's like, it's really young and progressing too fast so I'm like scared of that issue. But, what I am impressed about it is like that I really love meeting amazing people like yourself that even, it doesn't matter what happens. It matters more that, that it's consciously in the brain and you talk about it openly and you brainstorm to make it, okay to understand that, everybody's part of the problem. You can talk about it. So, and being proud of it and thinking about the ethics, just conversing about it usually is very courageous and I love it.
Yeah, that's the point. Very courageous. I hope not stupid, right? Because I am putting on the table things that people don't want to think about, right? Don't talk about it. Where are we going to solve it? And I think that there are many people around us that could contribute and stop and think about this. First of all, if they realize it, and second of all, if it wasn't a taboo to talk about it, let's talk about this, right?
Like talking about slaves, It's like you have to talk about it.
Yeah, maybe slaving is bad.
Yeah,
that's okay. We're all going to be slaves of AI. But no, I think there's also like the knowledge gap. So it's very difficult to converse about it when the text seems so, overwhelming. And most people, it's like talking in the early days of the internet, trying to discuss, how the internet actually works. It's a conversation that's beyond a lot of our understanding.
That's where I love coming in. I teach MBA programs. And truthfully, it's not hard to explain this. Okay. It might be a knowledge gap. Yes, because everything is moving so fast, but as long as you have translators that can take these advanced ideas and simplify them and explain them in a way that everybody can understand, then the knowledge gap can be closed. I saw a wonderful saying that a quote today that I saw that was like, if you can't explain it simply enough, you don't understand it well enough.
Einstein.
Yeah, Einstein, exactly. So luckily, there are people around the world that know how to explain this and can help people close the gap. So by all means, that's where I encourage people. And can I be a little bit pro women? Okay, the whole financial system until now was built by men. Isn't it our turn? Isn't it our turn to come and give our 2 cents? Right? Everything is new. Everything is new. Everything is being created. Where is our voice? Okay. Where is our voice as mothers, as women, as people of different backgrounds? Okay. This is the time.
Is that your mission these days, or in general, to fill in that knowledge gap?
I think it's part of what I do and I'm passionate about. I don't know if that's my only mission. My if you're asking me what my goal is to create a better future for as many people as I can. Okay. There are many ways to do that, right? From my perspective, let's say the company that I'm building right now is actually a blockchain-based distribution protocol that comes to mitigate brand and documentation fraud. Okay, where people are cheating. Okay, and we have a patent about. I already wrote a patent about how to use these technologies and implement it in a great way. And and so this is one way. Let's take, first of all, let's take out the fraud. Let's take out the cheating. Right. Let's move that out of the equation. B. Let's enable people that have their own data to utilize and monetize it themselves. That's another mission that I have. That's why I'm in Web3. That's why I love Web3. That's why I love the idea of the questions about who does the data belong to? How do you monetize it? Right now, it's being hogged by the tech giants, right? Okay, they're not giving the people what they should be getting, right? So I guess that, and obviously giving the people the knowledge to understand what is available to them. Okay, there is so much that is available to humans right now. You can learn so much, you can create so much, you can it's being created right now. Imagine that every one of us was passionate about giving the power of data to the people. Okay, imagine what kind of world could have been created. People would not necessarily have to be working so hard in menial jobs and being paid minimum wage or being unemployed, because the data that they're generating on TikTok could have covered their basic living income. You don't need a universal income. All you need to do is give the people the monetization of the data that they're creating. That's all you need to do. And everybody has money enough to sustain themselves, right?
I think that sounds utopian and absolutely amazing. And it taps into being able to be self-reliant and to monetize yourself in the best way. I mean, I don't know if TikTok is the best example I'd choose, but just in general, we are the owners of our data. And if we were able to leverage that for our well-being, I think that's a beautiful future. And trying to think more practically, and I wish it weren't the case.
It is on the way. I mean, if you look at the developments on Web3, if you look at what I'm building right now, it's different solutions. It's like recreating the internet again, this time on Web3, which enables the data collection and finding ways to solve real world problems that humans have using this new technology. Now, the thing is that, earlier we were speaking about the Gartner graph, right, of with the hype, right? And I don't know if you remember, that goes up and then it goes down because the hype was at the top, and then come the interesting developments. Okay, so if we're looking at the new technologies that have to do with financial technology right now, especially in the areas of crypto and NFTs and blockchain, what we're seeing most of the time is the hype part. Okay, of the great ideas that the kids come up, it's really cool, it's really classic, but they don't have a business case. They're not necessarily solving a real world problem. Okay, therefore, inevitably, just like in the Gartner graph of technology adoption, the drop is going to come. Okay, and we're seeing that with crypto, we're seeing that with NFTs. But the interesting part comes after that, with the new projects that come that take into account this technology. How can I apply this in a way that gives value and solves real world problems? Okay. Now, if you look back at the 2-3 projects that I've done with NFTs, where we did it with the College of Management and the CPA Union, we built NFTs of certification. Okay, to showcase how NFTs can be used in the prevention of fraudulent certificates and degrees. Okay, that's the way to solve it, right? Okay, so we showcased that it's possible. It's something that, we were the first in the world to do this in the CPA Union. We were the first to do it in Israel for the MBA program, and the first in the world after the Samsung University in South Korea of Samsung that did this for a few certificates. Okay, so when we did this with the College of Management for the MBA program, it's not only the first in Israel, it's the first in the world to implement this solution in order to prove that degrees are authentic. Okay, and when we did it with the CPA Union, again, we showcased that again. Okay, so these new developments and new technologies can not only create hype, they can create real world value. Okay, and that is where the sweet spot is. How do they solve problems that exist already?
So what advice would you give to somebody who is sitting in their cubicle and this whole Web3 notion and using data for good and adding value to the world sounds really appealing, but then again, so overwhelming. And I know, like, the structured programmer in you is just going to say, go and learn. But beyond that,
How did you know that?
Well, we've been speaking for a while. But, it's bigger than that, because even if you want to go and learn, then, it's like there's so much data. Again, data is very confusing. So I would love to sort of get some advice from you on how to sort of screen noise and understand how practically it's possible to actually get a grip on this new world. Beyond that,
convincing me to go ahead and build A digital course that anybody can learn. I haven't, like, I've done courses when, now I'm doing it with one of the major banks. They asked me to come and teach their employees. So I'm doing it that way. And people that came up to me and came as a group and asked me to open a course for them, and I did that for them and I taught them, right? And this is a project that has been shelved for a long time. That why don't I record this and let people learn, and an easy way that lets them look at our conversation today. I think many people can understand this, right?
Yes.
So that's what I try to give. That's what I try to take complex ideas and knowledge and wrap them in a way that gives people value, in a way that they can understand and what they can do with it next. So you're kind of like prioritizing in my brain something that I've been playing around with, right? I just didn't prioritize it necessarily of building a recorded crypto course.
So for the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to assume that the answer to that part of the question is soon, or, in the next few months, maybe it will be through you. But I guess some people with initiative can also find a way to bridge that knowledge gap. And I do hope that it's going to be with your help. But whether or not that's the way, what's the next step? Like, what advice would you give somebody who now has the understanding of the landscape and wants to actually create something and bring value to the world through it?
Use the 4 extra hours a day that you're sitting in front of your TV, Netflix, or Facebook, or TikTok for that matter. Sorry, TikTok, I don't have anything against you, except that you should give the data back to the people, right? But use that time and start filling the knowledge gaps on all aspects, not just about the technology, but on the how-to and on the emotional part, and what do you want to build, and it's not just academic learning. It's learning from experience. It's learning from mentors. That's not something I can give, right? But go in, and there are people that this is what they do. Okay, and learn things about growth mindset. About there's so much out there today with mentors from different areas of what you need in order to fulfill your dreams. And yes, dare to dream. If I could put a slogan, is dare to dream and dare to pursue it. All of us have this ability. We did that when we were born. What's the difference? Why can't we do it when we're 50 or 60 or 40 or 70? It's not like that. It's a waste of years. Like, I see people sitting in front of, sorry, I'm going to go back again, right? People sitting at home and not doing stuff, and kind of like years and years go by and their dreams are shelved. Why? Isn't it? It's your life. Do something great with it.
It's really sad, and it's part of the reason that we started this podcast, because we want to be that voice that encourages and helps bridge that gap between, being passive and actually taking initiative, even if it means failing along the way. And hey, it's going to mean failing along the way for sure, right?
It's no failing. Remember, it's achieving goals that you didn't plan to achieve along the way.
Right. What's your superpower?
My first inclination would be, because we were talking about it, I guess, would be taking complex ideas and knowledge and wrapping it and explaining it in a way that gives other people value. So I would think that is one of them. And then a lot comes under that. For instance, being able to look into the different futures, because it's like what analysts do, right? You kind of like see where things heading. Where is this going? What could be created on these technologies, and where would that bring us on the different aspects? And then taking that complexity and wrapping it in a way to bring it down to okay, so the steps that we need to do are now this, and this. And that's a lot of what the advisory and the strategic help that I give companies and regulators, and even private people. That's part of what I give. I sit down and I sit and that's what I do. I look into them. Okay, what are we talking about? The third thing I think is looking about, maybe it's the same thing, I guess, is trying to find that place where different parameters fit together in order to create what you want to create. Okay, that sweet point of where you're giving value, therefore people want that value, therefore the business case of what you're building is useful, and it's using innovative technology to solve a real problem. That's 5 things, right? And finding that place, because I think that's where beauty is, right? And that place where you're getting value, doing everything, right? And you're solving problems. So with the technology, with the innovation, and that's a lot of why I'm invited to come in and again and advise and strategize and think together on board of directors of different I think that's kind of like the added value that I can bring, and I enjoy helping people. I enjoy helping companies. I enjoy building a better future for as many people as possible, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I think also talking to you, you also have that vision to be able to see the optimal intersection between different worlds.
I don't know if I could do that, let's say, on the medical world or worlds that I don't have enough knowledge on.
No, but on the ones that you do have.
On the ones that I do, yes, of course. Everything that has to do with blockchain, crypto, money, finance, trading, payments, loans, all the rest of it, all of these new worlds that are combined between finance and technology, those sweet spots. Yeah, those are where I can build those things.
And your kryptonite?
My kryptonite. Oh, this is embarrassing. Self-doubt?
Oh, yeah? I wouldn't guess. I'm not being cynical.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, God, that's a behind the scenes of this. You can censor this part. Of course, self-doubt. Am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Why isn't this fast enough? Maybe I'm not adequate enough to do this. Self-doubt.
You're overcoming it. So how?
Trying harder? I don't know. Trying again, not giving up. What can I do?
I think also you're able to sometimes balance out that voice. I think maybe it's like a voice in your head that's there. But like you mentioned earlier, you have that feedback from reality that helps you remember.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's about remembering. Definitely, it's about remembering. I think I'm pretty lucky because, one of the things that I learned on this journey is choose who you surround yourself with. You know that you're the average of the 5 people that are closest to you. Choose those 5 people very carefully.
It's amazing that you're saying that, because when you were talking about how you headed off as an entrepreneur for the first time, I was thinking of asking you exactly that. I was thinking of asking you if this is somehow related to being the average of the 5 people around you. Did you have like references of people on their individual journey?
I had to weed out a lot of people. I didn't have that, but during this journey, I learned how to synthesize and know what kind of people I enjoy surrounding myself with. And I can give you the exact traits.
Please do.
Well, number 1, empowering people. People that are there to remind you when you forget how wonderful you are. They empower. Okay. Like, sometimes people joke and they kind of like banter with each other. I think it's much better to surround yourself with people that empower you, that tell you you're amazing. Look at your beautiful eyes, Noah. Okay. Look how smart you are. Look what you've done. Okay. To remind you in those moments of doubt, So first of all, people that are empowering. Second of all, people that are positive. Okay. Not people that are like, you see people, life is not easy. I didn't say this until now, but I have 2 children that are known as disabled, recognized as disabled. Okay. Mm-hmm. It would be so easy to give up for them, for me, to just say, life is shit. It's easy because life, I say this to my kids, there's gravity. Gravity isn't good or bad, right? But there are illnesses. There are things that happen that you don't necessarily have control over. Gravity exists. Germs exist. Are they good? Are they bad? Depends on who you are. I mean, if you're building a house, it's good that there's gravity. You don't want your house to fly in the air, right? But if you're falling, it's not good. Okay, so they're not good or bad. They're there. Now you can sit down and be bummed because gravity is there and say, there are germs. I got sick. Oh my God. My daughter had to go through major surgery 2.5 years ago. She had to learn how to walk again at the age of 12. Oh, she got to a point where she was on a wheelchair. In 6 months, her body deteriorated to the point where in order to save her, I had to stop everything. That's maybe why it took me 5 years, right? I had to stop everything for a whole year and take her and abroad. We had to have major surgery in New York because that was where the specialist was, and rehabilitation, and teach her again how to walk. Okay. It's like, you could sit down and be bummed and say, fuck, I'm sorry that, I'm working. I had to give up all my clients, everything, all the momentum that I built for 2 whole years I had to stop them. I don't have tenureship anymore and vacation days and sick days. Nobody cares. And I had to stop and save her and rebuild everything all over again. Okay? It's easy to just give up and say, life is too hard. I'll just sit down and watch TV. I'll watch somebody else's life, right? And so the second trait that I surround myself with people, or that I like, are people that are positive, that have gone, like life has its ups and downs. So after the down, the hardest part is finding the strength to go up again and reach a new height until the next, like a sinus graph, right?
Because
hopefully it's going upwards eventually, right? But shit happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so the second trait that I look for in people is this optimism, this positivity, this ability to pick yourself up when you're on the floor and when you want to give up, and they pick themselves up and they said, okay, I'm not dwelling down here in gravity. I'm mustering the courage and the energy and the strength to blow myself out. When I came back after saving her, she was finally walking again. She was in rehabilitation only 2 days a week. She started school again after missing a whole school year. So 3 days a week she was at school, 2 days I would take her to rehabilitation, and that continued for another half a year, right? I remember in the 3 days where she was at school, she would wake up and go to school. I would wake up, and this is after me giving up everything that I built, right? Not wanting to wake up, saying, what am I doing here? Why am I still here? Like, I don't have the energy to even get out of bed. Just why do I have to wake up again and be in this reality? Like, I've done my part. I've done the best that I could. And like, literally, you know what? I didn't even know. I broke 2 bones. I was doing with 2 broken bones saving her. I only realized that after she was fine, I went to the doctor and said, okay, I have pain here and here, let's I don't know what happened there. The x-ray, I had 2 bones broken, and I continued.
Wow.
Okay. So it's so easy to just give up. It's like, giving into gravity. So the second thing that you want is to surround yourself with people that have gone through this and know that when you're down, they remind you, sun shines tomorrow. You can build again. It's okay. You can do this again. You can build it better. You can do anything. The sky is the limit. You can do again. And yes, maybe another part of gravity is going to hit you again along the way. So you take a deep breath. You go through I built an algorithm of how to get up when you're down, right? When life hits you too hard, and you continue again. So that's number 2. Number 3 is that people that you can think about with, like, sit down and think about, and they're smart and they like to think about questions on different disciplines, like philosophical, ethical, where the future is going, think about ideas. I love that. I love the ability to think about ideas in the future and everything. So, and then there's the rest of it, that it's recuperated and it's just not one-sided and all the rest. But I think these are the 3 major things. And I'm lucky enough to have found along this journey people that these traits exist in them. So if you're asking me what happens when I have my self-doubt and when I wake up in the morning, or I have, luckily, these people that I can write to and say, like, why am I even trying? Why am I doing? I wanted this deal so much and it didn't come through, and I've been working a year and a half for it, and it didn't come through because something happened on a macro level or something else happened, right? And then they're there to empower me. Meirav, you're amazing. Look what the things that you achieved. Look at how much value you've given to people. Look at what you've built. Look at the value of what you've built, how much it helps people around you. And okay, so one deal did not happen. So you wasted X amount of hours. It's not wasted. You learned so much on the way, right? You achieved so much during trying to reach this goal. So you reached a different goal that you didn't want to reach. That's fine. You didn't fail. You're not a failure.
Thank you so much for being so transparent and vulnerable, and not trying to portray a picture that's flawless and is free of self-doubt, and for revealing also that personal part of your journey that is so significant and could have so easily made you completely stop. And I think the fact that you kept going, and the fact that you literally helped your daughter learn to walk again, and then figuratively had to learn to walk again business-wise, is so inspiring. And I hope that you're aware of just how powerful and empowering you sound and are.
Really, I hope I can give value to humans. I like today when Sham asked me, come and join this podcast, and I was like, wouldn't it make more sense if I joined this podcast when I was the size of Elon Musk, like, right? And he was like, you keep forgetting what you do. So if I can, even if at this stage when I still feel like I'm a chick, I haven't achieved like half of the goals that I want to be achieving, right? If I can help others in any way, obviously that fills my heart with a lot of joy. So thank you. I hope that our listeners will also feel that they got something from.
You have two here that certainly do.
Yeah, you think so?
Yes.
Wow. All right. So first of all, thank you. I appreciate that very much. I'm happy to hear that.
Meirav, thank you so much. I hope your book gets written and your course happens, and that in general, you're able to keep you're doing and impacting and trying to make the world a better place. As grandiose as it sounds, you certainly seem like you're breaking it down into incremental steps, and I'm so glad that you are.
Thank you.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane. Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. It's alive!
Real life.
Superpowers.